Hello and welcome everybody. You're watching World 360 on CNN News 18. My name is Aisha Varma. In this show, we'll be taking a look at some of the biggest international stories that have made headlines this week. That includes defense ties being strengthened between India and the United States, a damning report for ex-UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson in connection with the Partygate scandal, the latest in the Russia-Ukraine war, and more. But before that deep dive, here's a look at the headlines. Ahead of the Prime Minister's state trip to the United States, the U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin was in India for 2 days to explore ways to boost bilateral ties. After negotiations, mega defense deals are expected to now be announced during the Prime Minister's trip. Former United States President Donald Trump has been indicted in 2 separate cases this year. Could it cause trouble for the Republican frontrunner ahead of the 2024 U.S. presidential elections? February 24th, 2022. The day Russia's war in Ukraine began. Flash to today, it remains claim versus claim when it comes to capturing territory. But the fight continues. Cyclone Bipurjoy made landfall in India's Gujarat a few days ago, leaving a wake of destruction in its path. Now, efforts are on to deal with the damage. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is all set to embark on his trip to the United States from June 21st to June 24th. Now, there's lots of exciting build-up to his visit, with multiple congressmen talking about the ties between the two nations. And on the cards are mega defense deals, which are expected to be announced during this trip. This includes a deal between General Electric and Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, which is going to pave the way for an 80% transfer technology for jet engines between the two nations. This level of tech transfer has not been given by the US, the UK, or France to any other nation before. Now, the drone deal is the second most important deal expected to be finalized and announced during the Prime Minister's trip. It's a deal for Predator drones, which have an endurance of 25 and more hours and can operate up to 50,000 feet with a nearly 4,000-pound payload capacity.
And as we look ahead to the state visit that Prime Minister Modi will be embarking upon in Washington next week, along with Ajit Doval and a significant delegation from India, a number of the deliverables at that visit are not just bullet points on a page. They are fundamentally designed to remove those obstacles in defense trade, in high-tech trade, in investment in each of our countries, in taking away obstacles that have stood in the way of better collaboration among our scientists and researchers, in stimulating greater access for our students going both ways, for Americans coming to India, Indians coming to the United States.
And ahead of the Prime Minister's trip, the United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken praised ties between the two nations. Listen in.
We see the importance of the partnership in a shared commitment to address regional and global challenges, promoting health security, working with our Quad partners to build a free, open, secure, prosperous Indo-Pacific, where people, where goods, where ideas can travel freely and rules are applied fairly. I have witnessed India's constructive leadership on these issues up close these last 2.5 years. And I see it in their ambitious agenda at this year's G20. Simply put, we see this defining relationship as a unique connection between the world's oldest and largest democracies, with a special obligation now to demonstrate that our governments can deliver for and empower all of our citizens.
प्रधानमंत्री जो है स्टेट विजिट, उनका एक स्टेट विजिट का मतलब है कि ये सम्मान के रूप में सबसे हाईएस्ट लेवल, तो उनको जो आदर सम्मान जो दिया जाएगा वो आज तक बहुत कम लोगों को दिया गया है और हमारे ही इतिहास में पहले 2 ही स्टेट विजिट हो चुके हैं। पर उसके अलावा प्रधानमंत्री जो है अमेरिका के संसद पे भाषण देंगे। ये जॉइंट एड्रेस होता है कांग्रेस को। आज तक कोई भी भारत का प्रधानमंत्री इसको 2 बार उन्होंने संसद को संबोधित नहीं किया, ये पहली बार होगा।
Now, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, a former diplomat, joins us for more. Ambassador, defense deals, a state invite, a second address to the United States Congress. Democrats seem to be warming up to India more so now than ever before. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that this visit by Prime Minister Modi to the United States is perhaps the most important visit in his career as Prime Minister. You know, he's going to the US for the 8th time, but this is the first time that it will be a state visit. Now, state visit is placed on a higher category as compared to other visits, including official visits. I may also mention that in the case of a state visit, the host government takes care of all the expenses. So that shows how much importance the US government is placing on Prime Minister Modi's state visit. Now, it's also true that the US now wants to work very closely with India. Firstly, the US realizes that India is an emerging power and that it is in the interest of the United States to have an excellent relationship with India. And secondly, in view of Chinese expansionism, the United States feels that it cannot contain this sort of expansionism from China without cooperation from India. So these are, broadly speaking, two important considerations which are behind the US's thinking. Now, what is going to happen during Prime Minister's visit will be very, very significant in terms of enhanced cooperation in a number of areas. Very, very significantly, cooperation in the defense area is going to be increased manifold.
Now, bouncing off of that, beyond defense, what are the other sectors where India and the United States can grow their partnership?
Well, India and the United States have several areas which have been earmarked for cooperation, other than defense. Of course, I mentioned semiconductors, which is a very important area for cooperation.
Absolutely.
But apart from these, there is this very, very important area of trade. Now, the US is India's biggest trade partner. And last year, I understand that we had reached a record figure of $191 billion in our bilateral trade. And the attempt is to take this figure higher. And I understand that American companies have invested about $54 billion in India. And on the other hand, Indian companies have invested about $40 billion in the United States, primarily in the sectors of IT, pharmaceuticals, and they have provided jobs to Americans. So the scope for expanding this trade and economic relationship is very real, and the two countries will be working closely in that direction. And then, of course, there is this very important sector of education, which the Prime Minister will personally be highlighting during his visit, because he will be taking part in an event where I think the President's wife, the First Lady Jill Biden, would be participating too. And the idea would be to emphasize the need to enhance cooperation between US educational institutions and Indian educational institutions, because India and the US can really cover a lot of ground when it comes to education.
Absolutely.
And the emphasis will very much be on this extremely important area during Prime Minister Modi's visit.
A very interesting analysis, Ambassador. Thank you for joining us. Now, we're shifting focus to another important story where the United States Department of Justice has indicted former United States President Donald Trump over the mishandling of classified documents at his Florida Mar-a-Lago resort. Now, Trump, who appeared in a Miami court, has pleaded not guilty to the charges. He says, "I'm innocent." And the charges, the criminal charges, and the tally stands at 37. This is the second case in which Trump is facing criminal charges. Trump was indicted by Manhattan grand jury back in March and also faces criminal charges in New York over hush money payments to Stormy Daniels. It spells more trouble for the former president, who's running once again for the post in 2024. Now, Mr. Puneet Ahluwalia, the former Republican candidate for the lieutenant governor post of Virginia, joins us. Mr. Ahluwalia, thank you for joining us. But after being indicted twice, arrested twice, being held guilty for taking classified documents out of the White House, which held national security secrets. Do you believe that Trump is the right candidate to head the Republicans' charge against the Democrats in 2024?
I believe we have some great candidates who have come and stepped forward, and we'll be hearing more about them. And I believe that the Republican base and the party is going to unite together behind the nominee. And I believe that's going to be not Trump, but somebody else. And I think the United States, the people are tired of the divisiveness that exists, and they're also concerned about the inflation, the issues of Biden administration, which is kind of plaguing all of us, including the economy being one of the issues. And of course, our standard on the world stage is going down. So I believe that the Republican Party is going to unite together. Yes, this is a big hoo-ha about the indictment, and it's unfortunate that former President Trump is, how do I say, he kind of brings it on himself, and I guess now he's got to face the music. But till then, he's innocent, till proven guilty. And we'll see a lot of it and more of it, because I believe the Democrat wants those narrative to be played out in the media and mainstream media, so that the real impact of Biden's economy and impact is not felt, so that people are busy with this whole indictment drama.
But why is this being called a witch hunt when the courts are hearing the case and subsequently indicting him? Does this not mean that Republicans don't trust the courts and what their findings are?
Well, I believe, as I just said, I truly believe that the rule of law should follow. But what has happened is there has been a constant attack on President Trump from the beginning, from the time he took office, and they've been after him. And some of it is his action and his doing. And in fact, him taking the classified document was uncalled for. But
Absolutely.
We all know how President Trump is. But more importantly, I believe that there's a general mistrust in our Department of Justice, including our law enforcement. So I think that is the biggest concern that we have to see. I think leaders come and go, but the institution have to stay pure and honest. That's most important.
Interesting points, Mr. Ahluwalia. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, shifting focus to the Russia-Ukraine war, Ukraine's military has claimed that its forces have achieved partial success in several regions as part of their ongoing counteroffensive. Now, during a televised meeting in Russia chaired by Russia's President Vladimir Putin, Putin said that Ukraine's forces have suffered catastrophic losses during their counteroffensive. Putin has also said that the first batch of tactical nuclear weapons has been stationed already in Belarus, and that Russia may deploy nuclear weapons only if their existence is threatened. Now, beyond this, Russia also launched airstrikes across Ukraine, with the central city of Kryvyi Rih being hit. Now, CNN gets an exclusive access to a Ukrainian nighttime drone unit. Here is CNN's Fred Pleitigen for more. Take a look.
A 3D printed stabilizer fin, some plumbing tubing, lots of glue, and the bomb is ready. Then it's night vision goggles on, lights off, and full speed ahead to the front line. We're with an elite drone unit of Ukraine's security service, the SBU, and the patrol police, looking to take out a key Russian anti-tank position with a precision strike. We found this target only recently, a team leader says. It was discovered literally today, and today it will be destroyed.
So we're going to the drone launch site right now. It's obviously extremely dangerous, and we have to watch out that the Russians don't see us.
Speed and precision are essential. The drone, a quadrocopter on steroids, able to carry a massive payload up to 45 pounds. In this case, a mortar shell the Ukrainians say they got from retreating Russian forces elsewhere and are now using to hit Putin's army.
Now we finish our preparing.
Okay.
Bomb is ready, and we're ready to go.
Okay.
Взлетаем? Да. Ready, steady, go.
It's big, it's loud, and it's heading straight to the Russian position. We need to hide. Out here, the hunters quickly become the hunted.
So for the Russians, the drone crews are also a high-value target, so obviously the Russians want nothing more than to kill these guys.
Unfazed by the shelling around us, the pilot flies straight to the target and releases the bomb.
This moment we call from Ukraine with love.
So you just dropped the bomb?
Yep.
This is what the blast looks like from the drone's camera. Pitch black, the strike fully automated. It's not until daytime that a reconnaissance flight proves they've hit and destroyed the target. Not clear how many Russians were killed and wounded here. This will allow the defense forces of Ukraine to move forward and continue the offensive, he says. With minimal losses, will inflict maximum losses on the enemy for the victory of Ukraine. But it's not over. As the UAV flies back, intercepted text messages show the Russians have heard the drone and are targeting it. Enemy birds spotted a Russian text, understood another answers. They launch flares to spot the drone.
Now you can see.
Oh, yeah, back there. See it?
Lustra, called Lustra.
Are they shooting those up to see the drone, or why?
They cannot see the drone, but they shoot for the sound.
Finally, the drone makes it back. They need to get out of here fast.
Will we follow you?
Yeah, let's go, follow me. Come on.
After what they say was a successful mission, the drone warriors leave exactly the way they came. Fred Pleitkin, CNN in southeastern Ukraine.
Now, Cyclone Bipurjoy developed into a cyclone in the early morning hours of June 6th. It made landfall in India on June 15th. Dangerous wind speeds of 125 kilometers per hour and heavy rainfall were witnessed in the state of Gujarat. A man and his son died when they tried to save their livestock in Gujarat. 23 people were injured in various areas, and about 100,000 people who were evacuated in western India were temporarily relocated to relief camps. Now, as per NASA, cyclones in the Arabian Sea are relatively rare, although they are becoming more frequent with rising sea surface temperatures. A 2021 study led by researchers in India found that cyclones over the last 4 decades have become more frequent and have lasted longer. The researchers found that ocean temperatures were linked to this change. CNN News 18's Vinaya Deshpande went to the gateway of Gujarat Dwarka to cover the landfall of Cyclone Bipurjoy. Take a look at the moment when the cyclone hit day before.
Here at Devbhoomi Dwarka, the wind speed has been rising. We have been lashed by incessant rainfall, for the last 1 hour or so. The sea has also grown violent in the last 1 hour. In fact, the visibility has dipped so much that it is difficult to show you the violent sea, which is right ahead of me behind my video journalist. But you can imagine the kind of impact that these winds must have had on the several installations and on the infrastructure on the coastal region of Dwarka. We have seen that, here in this area at least, several poles have come down, canopies have come down, trees have borne the brunt of the violence that Cyclone Bipurjoy has unleashed. We are seeing that as the landfall has begun, this has only increased the speed of the wind, making it impossible for us to stand here. The sea, which is at least 100 meters away from here, the sea water is traveling all the way across to here. Salt water on our faces, in our eyes.
Now, with that, we're heading into a very short break, but stay tuned for more on the other side.